One of the narratives that's been very pervasive ever since Tears of the Kingdom launched is the idea that, oh, nobody's talking about the game on the internet. So that means the game is bad, right? Because we're so used to like people just spamming, talking about like new exciting games all the time. We saw this with Witcher 3, with Bloodborne, with um what even else, right? Like Elden Ring, I suppose. Like you have these games that are like spammed, big online, and then you have stuff like Tears of the Kingdom, which kind of just vanishes after a brief while. And there's been a lot of speculation as to why. And the overwhelming consensus, for what I can see, is that like, oh, these games aren't actually that good. They're not memorable. They're not interesting. They're not like worthy of being talked about. And as someone who has played Tears of the Kingdom considers it one of the best games ever made, and one of my games of the year, and just one of the an incredible sequel to Breath of the Wild, which was spammed on 4chan. Like I think I'm thinking back to what's changed over the past several years. And the thing that I'm coming to, the conclusion that I've reached, is that I simply don't want to talk about video games on the internet anymore. And what it comes down to really is that there are so many times that I make my opinion known, that I make a video, that I make a 4chan thread, or I talk about something where a bunch of like people who don't know what they're talking about come in and try to make up some weird narrative, right? Like how often do we hear going into Tears of the Kingdom, oh, it's just a rehash of Breath of the Wild. It's the exact same map. Like there's nothing new, there's no originality, there's nothing different, right? And then we got the game, and that's not actually the case. And then the same people like pivoted to like saying that like, oh, the combat isn't good, it's repetitive, it's not difficult, it's not challenging. That there are better open world games out there, and that simply isn't true, right? And I think what it comes down to really is that like I don't I disrespect these people so much that I don't even want to have a dialogue with them. Right? If I want to talk about a game, I'll just come straight to YouTube. I'll like make like a short 15-minute video talking about something I had, like some experience I had, or something I noticed, or something I did. And that's all I really need, right? Is to just talk at you about how much I like this game. I don't want to hear what these plebs have to say about Nintendo games, right? Because if you go and look at what the plebs are saying, they're trying to tell you that they're like streaming this game day one on their Steam decks with like 120 FPS, with mods, with like I don't know, like full like titty support or something, right? I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're doing. But basically, like, the experience that these people claim to have on Switch are is so different than my experience that, like, I honestly don't even believe it ever happened, right? When people talk about glitches, I just assume they're making it up. I'm tired with arguing with people who are constantly disingenuous and constantly want you to think that Nintendo is the worst company ever, right? Like it was frustrating a long time ago, but now, it just comes off as completely unreasonable what some of these people come up with. Nintendo is an evil company. Nintendo is the worst. Nintendo's hardware is broken. It's been outdated since 2017. Right? Yeah, forget all the great games that have been coming out like, this year, right? Forget all the great stuff that's come out on Switch. Like since then, the hardware, that limits the experience. No, of course not. That's not true at all. But these people, not only are they not admitting it, they refuse to admit it. They refuse to acknowledge there's a problem with how they conduct themselves and how they talk about products like this online. They refuse to like really consider that maybe they're wrong, and maybe their little niche community of people who worship Steam Deck, Valve, and Elden Ring, like maybe they aren't like the hot shot, like, primo, just top of the line, the most hardcore game players there are out there. Because that isn't true. Because actual hardcore players, people like myself, are too busy playing the actual games. And that's what it comes down to. Like, who is the more hardcore gamer? The person who spends all of their time talking about video games on the internet, or someone who actually plays them? And when it comes down to it, like, if I have to argue about a game on V or play it, like, I am just going to play it. And I think that is why people aren't talking about Tears of the Kingdom, because they are too busy playing one of the best games ever made.